everyone. Quick gospel grit for us today. I think that something that for me has been really, really useful in my life. It's been something that I think has directly impacted the way that I organize my life, organize my days. Um, to be able to, by God's grace, all this is by God's grace, obviously. None of this is to boast in self or in my accomplishments or anything of that nature. Um, it's how I've been able to, again, by God's grace, maintain a full-time job, have a family with 4 children, whom I pray none feel neglected, none feel as though they don't have enough time with me or with my wife and myself. Um, and I think it's something that's an often overlooked virtue in the Christian life. We're called to be like God, to reflect God as His image bearers. And I think one area that Christians could do much better in and excel in would be to reflect God in His being a God of order, right? We know that in 1 Corinthians it says, in the context of the church, obviously, but really it's establishing something about God in all things, but it's Paul is bringing that truth to bear on the church. But if that's true about God in the church, if it's a true reality about God, independent of even the church, it's something rooted in God Himself, then we can apply that not just to the church, but to all areas of life. And it's that God is a God of order. We read in that same chapter, all things should be done decently and in order. Throughout many times in Scripture, God tells His prophets to write things down, to organize themselves, as it were, so that they can deliver the right messages. If you hear a bunch of noise in the background, sorry, my family's out there bumping music, playing instruments, and so forth. But anyways, Christ even says to consider the cost before building a tower, to sit down and count the cost to make sure he has enough to complete it. When you see Paul commanding even Moses in the Old Testament, Moses gathers to himself, as it were, the leaders to be able to form a type of structure so that they could rule in the people of Israel well. So all these things, even the way that God has ordered days and nights, every single day, seasons that repeat, and there's so much order in God. There's so much organization in God. There's not chaos in God. There's organization, there's order, there's structure in God. So all that to say, I think that Christians would maximize their time, would maximize their efficiency, or would maximize their productivity, would be able to do a lot more, would have more zeal and zealousness for good works, because they would have time for good works. They would have organization that is brooding, as it were, the ability to accomplish good works. The reason why I think Christianity doesn't do as much as it could is because we don't have the Lordship of Christ being applied to our organization and the way that we structure our life, structure our day, structure our time, and we're always playing catch up rather than being forward thinking and being ahead of our days by having order and structure to go and bring the Lordship of Christ to bear there, to sit down and consider the cost of the day, to sit down and consider the cost of what it would be to go to war, so to speak, in this field or this arena. There's some things that we don't sign up our children for because we know if we do that, it's going to take up X amount of time, and we don't have that X amount of time. There's some things that we don't commit to as a family because we consider the cost and say, if we were to do these things, we would not have the ability to do nightly family worship. We would not have the time to have intentional quality family time together. And of course, that's just for our family. That's how we structure our life. All I'm saying is every family, especially fathers, heads of families, should sit down and consider the cost, whether it be the structure of the schedule, the structure of time spent here or there, the structure of whatever it is, the things that your family will be identified with, the hobbies that your family will undertake, whatever it is. I just pray that as Christians we could be intentional about structuring our day, our calendars, so that there's an orderliness about the way that we go about our life, that we might maximize the time that God has given us, that we might make the most of the time that God has given us. Not always playing catch up, right? Not always flying by the seat of our pants, as it were, not always being impulsive, but actually getting the reins of our schedule and our time, that we might truly glorify God with it. Again, every family will be unique. We're not going to be legalistic here or say, well, what my family does, your family must do. But you have to ask yourself, especially fathers of homes, you must ask yourself, how can I truly foster and cultivate a family that spends time together, that has intentional quality time together, that structures their day around family worship, around the dinner table, around meaningful conversations, while adding on other things. So, all that to say, God is a God of order, not of chaos. We should reflect that attribute of God in our day-to-day lives and how we structure our weeks, how we structure our days, how the Lord's Day should be priority, how family worship should take precedence, and how we should really be thoughtful with the way that we use our time. Be Christians who reflect God and have an orderly life, not a chaotic life.